Welcome to I Got You podcast. I'm Heather, and I'm here with Keisha and Renee, the hosts of I Got You podcast. Today, our topic will be on love the polyamorous way. And of course, our guest is Kuji. He's a singer, songwriter. He's out of Atlanta, Georgia, who's a practicing advocate for polyamory. So welcome, Kuji.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good. So today, again, like you said, we're very open to understanding more about polyamory because we've just been in monogamous relationships. So knowing a little bit more and spreading it to our audience is going to be great.
Yeah.
So we all are going to have different questions, okay?
Right.
All right. So our first one, right? People often mistake polygamy and polyamory. What are some of the key differences between these lifestyles? Excuse me.
So polygamy is more of multiple spouses opposed to having multiple relationships, which polyamory is. And polygamy could be a form of polygyny or polyandry, where polyandry is where the woman has multiple husbands and the male has multiple wives, and they only engage romantically and sexually with that particular person. If it's polyandry, they only engage with that woman, the wife. And if it's polygyny, then they only engage with the husband. Whereas polyamory, you can love freely, you can date whom you want to. And what polyamory means, but literal translation, it's Latin and Greek for many and loves, but the concept and the principles behind polyamory is to have the capacity and the desire to love more than one person simultaneously, while everyone is in the know and accepting of those multiple relationships, you know.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So with that, it's okay for your wife to date a guy or a girl or whatever she wants. You don't have a problem with any of that.
No. And so there's so many different dynamics that you may experience in polyamory. For myself and my wife, we practice what we call kitchen table polyamory. Because we date separately, because we both are heterosexual. So we date separately. We would never date in a triad, which is inviting someone into our relationship. But she's definitely open to all the freedoms that I have. It's not a factor of me allowing her to do this or her allowing me to do that. Neither one of us own or possess each other. So, we both encourage and support one another's happiness, however that may look. And if that happiness consists of loving someone else outside of each other, then we support that as well. Because at the end of the day, our love together is still there. We're still desiring to share that love together.
So is there typically any jealousy if you're just...
So a lot of people like to believe that if you're polyamorous, you don't get jealous. And real jealousy isn't a real emotion. It's more so frustration, neglect, and things of that nature. But it does arise, But what people that are polyamorous do, we typically learn how to process. We find ways to process that jealousy. We try to get to the root of why do we feel this way, and attack that and say, okay, how can we process this to move beyond these feelings or uncomfortable feelings or insecurities that we may be feeling, to be able to thrive together and to move forward and rise in love, opposed to, having the pitfalls that jealousy will, usually bring forth. So, but yeah, so it does arise, and we just try to handle it. We try to communicate. That's one of the biggest keys to polyamory is just communication. And for my wife and I, we believe firmly in practicing effective communication while being brutally honest with ourselves about who we are, what we want, what we need and desire, and then effectively communicating that with each other and accepting each other for that as well. And just trying to grow from there. You know, so if there's some discomforts or some insecurities that may arise, then we sit down and have a conversation about it, you know, um, whatever it may be. You know, but typically we've done a good job at handling jealousy if it arises, and we're so comfortable in our love style that we really haven't been met with anything in the last, I say, 4 or 5 years that really bothers us to where we may feel some of those emotions of jealousy, you know.
So I wanted to ask, because I know you talk a little about, but I wanted to understand, how did you get started in this whole lifestyle? And kind of if you could explain how you started, how it works. I mean, you did touch a little bit into it, but I just want to understand, like, what leads someone to wanna, or what led you to wanna pursue this type of relationship?
Yeah. So for me, anyone that knows me from my childhood to now know that I've always been a lover. You know, hence the Instagram name, Coogee the Lover. I've
Yeah.
always been a lover of people. And I've always had a desire to love more than one person and be loved by more than one person as well. But, you know, growing up, that wasn't the understanding that I had. You know, the understanding that I had is I had to be monogamous, and you know, you meet that one person and fall in love with them, and it wasn't ideal to me, but I knew I had to conform to that, you know. But being the sort of rebel that I was, I always kind of, you know, steered away from it, you know. But back then it was more so just cheating, you know. But I knew that I desired to be, you know, non-monogamous, but I just didn't know that there was a love style or a lifestyle, you know, something that people were practicing, you know, back then. So I did what everyone else did. You know, I did a lot of cheating until a few years after, you know, meeting my wife and just kind of discussing those things. I felt, you know, she made me feel more comfortable with bringing those things to her. You know, it was the first time I really had been in a relationship where I felt open and vulnerable, open to be vulnerable about my desires. And at first, you know, we decided to just open up because I had these desires to, you know, I was curious about this woman. I'm like, she's gorgeous. She stimulates my mind. I'm interested in her. But yet I have this amazingly gorgeous woman who's brilliant, who's intelligent, you know, but I still, you know, want to, you know, get to know this person. And she was comfortable enough to say, okay, you know, explore that. And so when I did so, I started reading and researching open relationships as much as I could. And I found so much information until I started seeing this term polyamory. And I was like, wait a minute, it's not a real word. So I just dismissed it until a friend of mine was like, hey, Coogee, you know, I met a couple on a cruise ship, and they were telling me about this lifestyle that they're in, you know, they where the husband has a girlfriend and the wife has a girlfriend and a boyfriend and all that. And the things that they were describing, it reminded me of some of the things that you be saying. And so I was like, man, I've been seeing that term. And back then, this was like maybe 10, 11 years ago. And back then, there wasn't much information on the web, on the internet for me to find that. So I was in all the Yahoo chats and stuff like that, trying to find out about open marriages and open relationships. And I finally was like, let me find out about polyamory. And I looked it up, saw the definition, and I was like, that's me. That is me. But my wife, she was open to the open part and, you know, hall passes, I was, you know, as you would call it. But when I finally told her about polyamory and what that meant, she was like, wait a minute, you want to fall in love with someone else too? I can't do that. But that's kind of how I got into it, because it was really always within me and always a desire in me. But I finally had the support to really explore that, you know, and so I did so.
So it's interesting that you said something. So because you guys are open to it, it's not considered cheating?
Correct. I mean, what's cheating by definition? You know, going behind your lover's back, being with someone else. may look, whether it's emotional or
Yeah.
physical, you know, but when you're open and honest and communicative about what you have going on, it's not cheating.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You
Interesting.
know, because think about it, you playing a video game, and your partner, whoever you're playing against, they're operating by those rules, and you do something that's not along those rules. Well, in polyamory, we create our own rules. You know, well,
Right.
in my marriage, we create our own rules. You know, what we decide is what we decide. So if that's not a rule of ours, then yeah, we're not cheating.
So Kuji, could you kind of explain quickly again the structure? Like, so she can seek her relationship and then your relationship, but you don't do anything together.
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
and is it more than one relationships?
Well, see, the beauty of polyamory is you can date however many you desire to date, whatever your capacity is. Excuse me, I'm sorry. So, but yeah, she definitely can explore and meet whomever she desires to meet. Because at the end of the day, our relationship is our focus. You know, it's not putting our relationship over, you know, the other relationships. We allow autonomy for those outside relationships and our other partners, but we also understand that our focus, you know, is each other as well as, you know, our family. But you know, we are free to explore as many connections as we want, and it's not always a sexual thing too. So, you know, it can just be a deeply intimate platonic relationship or connection as well. So, you know, we just try to be open to exploring what feels good and what makes our heart sing.
So as it relates to exploring these other relationships, would you be open to marrying somebody else? Suppose you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm really digging this other person and I want to marry this person as well. Is that a thing?
Yeah, there we go. You should be open to, and what was the last thing?
Oh, sorry, did I freeze?
Yep.
Okay, so as it relates to exploring outside of your relationship, and say for instance you found somebody else that you were that in love with where you said you wanted to marry them as well. Is that a thing? Would you be able to marry them?
So then, if I were to do that, I would be venturing more into polygamy, which is more multiple spouses. And polyamory is just having multiple relationships and loving freely. But to answer the question, I don't desire a second wife or a third wife. Longevity, you know, loving commitments of longevity, because majority of the people that I've dated in my past are married as well, and they already have their own, you know, families as well too. So, but that's not to say I want to be corrected, because I'm currently not in a relationship outside of my wife. But when we are, we're in legitimate relationships. And we want our partners to understand and feel that you know, our relationship is legitimate. Your love for me and mine for you is legitimate. You know, we won't hide that, and we won't make you feel like you're an outsider because we have already established our connection. You know, we welcome the connection that you want to establish as well. So, for example, you know, my wife's boyfriend, he and his wife, they're here all the time, you know, or, you know, she's there all the time with our kids, and they hang out. You know, they may spend the night here as well. She may spend the night there, or I may spend the night there, or we may visit each other if it's a long distance connection. You know, we may travel to visit, you know, our partners. So we try to create time and space, you know, to cultivate those relationships outside of each other.
So if they're there and they want to have sex, you would excuse yourself from the room, or?
Well, because we have small children, we don't really display a lot of affection or sexual affection in front of the children, because we don't want to give them the wrong impression of what, you know, things are and how things operate.
Okay.
But we don't hide it. We don't hide it from them. You know, we speak about polyamory. We talk on the phone to our partners when they're not here. Our partners come here. You know, like I said, they spend a night as well. And our kids, you know, we believe they have an understanding of what is going on, but they see it more as just loving connections, you know, with people. And this is how they've always been. They've always been around this.
Yeah.
So it's more of a norm to them. But we will try to wait until like maybe later in the night, you know, out of respect for the children, or, you know, we may send the kids, you know, off for the weekend or something like that, or, you know, for the night to say, hey, go spend the night at your friend's house, you know,
Yeah.
and, or, you know, she and I will, you know, make plans to be out of the house or something like that, or, you know, go to their house or get a room, an Airbnb, which is really something that we do fancy now. We've gotten more into getting Airbnbs because you kind of want to have that alone time to do what you want to do. So we, you know, we support that as well.
Okay, cool. Good.
That leads me. This is a good segue into the question, Heather. I know. So how do you discuss sexual health in a relationship like that? Because I obviously it's important, and you want to make sure that everybody is good. How do you approach that?
Well, so my wife and I, we already were heavily, you know, conversing on, you know, sexual health because she and I both have lost someone dear and close to us to the complications of HIV. So even when we first met, it was always a conversation that she and I had. It was always something that she and I were doing as far as getting checkups regularly, which still continues to this day. But the beautiful thing about the polyamorous community is that the conversation and topic of sexual health is always on the forefront. Like it's always a topic of conversation where it's like, hey, when the last time have you gotten checked up? Or hey, you know what I'm saying? If you're conversing with someone, a potential, as we may call it in polyamory, you're conversing with a potential, like, hey, what's your status? So, you know, when the last time you've gotten checked up? Or, you know, let me see your paperwork, you know, sort of thing. So it's just.
You ask for proof.
Huh?
No, I was saying, do you ask for proof?
Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm saying. Let me see your paperwork. You know, and we make it a normal conversation in the poly community to ask those questions. You know, so it's not like a discomfort, like the stigma that, you know, you may have out here in the world, you know, surrounding sexual health, where people don't really want to say this, or people don't want to get tested for that. You know, it's in the poly community. It's like, no, let's talk about that. Let's discuss that, because it's in a way, it's educating, you know, individuals on sexual health and how to engage with someone who may have an STI or STD, you know, or how to prevent, you know, those things, or how to steer clear from, you know, if that's your choice. You know, we definitely have those conversations on a regular basis. And my wife and I, we definitely we try to get checked up twice a year. Or after we encountered a new sexual partner.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you.
What are some of the things that people misunderstand about polyamory?
Well, two things that you guys have already mentioned is that they misunderstand that it's cheating. The other is that it's just a sex fest. And because to be honest with you, I don't get as much sex as I would really like to have in polyamory with my partner, you know, with my wife. But you know, it's not like I'm hurting for it either, because it does happen,
right?
You know, but it's not necessarily our focus to go out and let me use have sex. That's more of a swing lifestyle where it's like and people misconstrue it too all the time. They think that polyamory is just a way to swing. You know, and you do have a lot of swingers that come into the polyamorous community, or that are polyamorous, you know, and kind of bring that energy, which is okay, because again, it's sex positive, it's, you know, sexually liberated community. But those are just some of the misconceptions, you know, that we get. Or another one that I get a lot is you can't commit. And I'm like, actually, actually commit a lot better than most because I can commit to more than one person, whereas one person may not be able to commit to the person they've been with for 10 years.
Right.
Another,
Very good point.
trying to think, another misconception that we usually get. Um, I can't think of any other. Those are really the main ones that I get a lot, that I get asked a lot about, when I have private. Because I get on Instagram and Facebook, because I post a lot about polyamory, I get a lot of questions in my inbox and DMs about polyamory. And those are usually just the top, conversations, that I have with people, surrounding, outside of them wanting to know how it works and,
Right.
if I think they would be
Yeah.
right for polyamory.
So is swinging more sexual?
So I've never been a swinger, but from just my understanding and research on what it is, it's more recreational sex than it is a loving connection. Because even with my friends who are in the swing community, they gravitate more to polyamory because it builds more loving connections opposed to just the recreational sex. So yes, it's definitely different.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not. I do want to make it clear that I'm not knocking swinging. Like, I think if I could be a swinger, I probably more than likely would be. I love sex. I'm very sex positive. I study and practice tantric sex, sacred sexuality. So I'm very, very huge on sexuality, and it's just like, yeah,
Okay.
I'm all for it, but it's just not my practice.
Right.
So
Cool.
what has been the biggest challenges of this relationship?
Self. Like really and truthfully, polyamory, I tell people all the time, polyamory will challenge you completely. It will make you see you for who you are, for who you thought you were, and who you're not. Because it's going to present you with all these things and situations that make you really see, what you're doing. You're going to be faced with all those things. Like if you can deal with your partner loving or just being intimate or even having sex with someone outside of you, it forces you to grow beyond who you are because of your understandings. Like a lot of people come into polyamory and they think that, oh, we just want to add a third to our relationship. And it, as you continue to get to know people in an open setting, you realize, okay, dang, I kind of like this person. And that person is not who we originally set out to, to enter into our dynamic, and it makes you really look at yourself and say, is that something I really want to do? Is it something I can have? Because most people get hit with that and they're like, nah, probably ain't for me.
Right.
But for myself and for my wife, just having conversations over the years, it really forces you to grow in communication. Because my wife and I, we were really good friends before we, entered into polyamory. We were a lot alike. A lot of people say that I married my mother because she acts a lot like my mother. Just fun-loving firecracker. But we were really great friends. But it wasn't until like I think maybe our third or fourth year, because when we first started out, she was in poly for like the first 3 years, and so she decided, hey, I think I want to try this. So it was around the fourth year, that we both were actively practicing polyamory, where we just really sat down and was like, okay, listen, we have to be brutally honest about who we are, what we want, what we need, and what we desire, and accept that within ourselves, and then share that with each other. And it wasn't until then that we really started to grow in who we were together. Because we opened up a whole nother level of vulnerability, and we realized that vulnerability is a strength and not a weakness. And so that was one of the aspects that, we really and truthfully got hit with. And at first it was difficult. It was extremely difficult because we were very combative at that point in time because we didn't realize how different we really were. We thought that we were just this close knit, couple at first. But it forced us to really examine who we were and how we felt about things and how we felt about other people, and I started to realize that I really do love, like, I had been saying it for years prior to, but I'm like, I really do love people and I really do want to connect with other people, and so you really learn a lot about yourself, if that makes sense.
So can I ask you a question? Because you said that, so you were into poly and your wife wasn't for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
She was okay with you being?
So, so she thought, well, we were originally, we decided to open up our marriage, right? And so when I started doing all this research, and came into this understanding of what polyamory was, and I brought it to her, she's like, wait a minute, I'm okay with you, being with other women, like I get that. Because in her mind, you just getting this out your system. Maybe, you didn't, because we were still kind of young too. So she's like, maybe you didn't have enough, and people that know me in college, I was a wild man. I'm a member of Omega Sci-Fi. I was accused, but she's like, maybe you just hadn't gotten it all out your system, and thinking it was more of a fad than it really was my personality and my desire to be, this individual. Mm-hmm. So she was like, well, go ahead and you explore, and we'll figure out a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Until like that 3rd year, she was like, wait a minute, man, you've been meeting all these women and having all this fun and going out on these dates and falling in love with people. I want to try it myself, and so that's when she decided to explore polyamory for herself, and of course I was very encouraging and very supportive of her doing so as well. And I'm glad that she did, because we hit the ball rolling.
Yeah.
But Kuji, is it really been that smooth though? I'm sure.
Oh,
has
no.
there been a time that during that time you're doing your thing that you like, okay, I don't really.
It wasn't smooth at all.
Okay.
It was not smooth at all, and I hope that I didn't make it seem that way. But it was a very difficult 3 years. Like, those were some of the toughest times of our marriage, because for one, I'm very much a communicative person. I like to talk. I like to communicate, especially if it's something that's on my mind, something I desire. I love to speak about it. And my wife is like, why do we have to keep talking about this? Like, I don't want to discuss this. And then I was reading every book that I could find on poly. I was ordering and reading, and articles and reading. And she was like, I don't want to talk about this. We talk about this every day. So we argued a lot about it. And of course, it made her feel insecure. It made her feel like, why do you need to be with someone else? Why am I not enough? And we had to, really understand that it wasn't about her and not being enough. It was more so about me and the capacity that I have, and the love, the desire that I desire to give and share, with people. So it wasn't easy at all, those first 3. And even afterwards, when we both started, because we had to learn how to adapt to now both of us being polyamorous and her dating, other guys, so it wasn't an easy pass through our journey. However, looking back on it, it was some of the most beautiful times, because like I said, it brought her and I so close together. Like I couldn't imagine, and she and I both say this, I couldn't imagine being in this love style or just living my life without her. Because that's how close we have grown, just through, the experiences that we've had in polyamory. We've had some experiences, so, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy by far, but we were determined to be together, and that's what I think makes it, looking back on it, makes it look easy to us. Okay. Well, it seemed like it was an easy journey now.
So are you always upfront with the people that you pursue, that you're in this lifestyle? Like, how does that, because I'm sure at some level when you go out and pursue, a girlfriend or a boyfriend, that person may be in a monogamous relationship. How do you approach that? And are you always upfront? And to what extent are you upfront about being a
Well,
polyamorous?
I'll say this, just to kind of clear something you said, not clear, but just to touch on something you said.
Mhm.
If they're already in a monogamous relationship, I won't approach them at all.
Okay.
Okay.
We respect everyone's relationships, However, we have a polyamorous community that we're part of. There's several different, Facebook groups,
Right.
online, and a really great friend, my best friend, he started a group that I admin. I've been the admin of the group since we started it, and that community allows us to meet other Black and polyamorous people. The name of the group is Poly Black and Dating. So we create that atmosphere for others that are like us, that are seeking other lovers. So majority of the time that I'm reaching out to people to connect with and to date is particularly from the polyamorous community. However, I will date women that aren't in the community. My wife has dated and will date guys that aren't in it, as long as they understand, our dynamic and, the love style that we have, and that she and I are together, but we support the connections. So, we'll date, if we're attracted to the individual, then we'll date them, as long as they understand the situation. Because you have a lot of people in the poly community that aren't really practicing poly like they're supposed to, and people that lie and say, hey, I'm poly, but their spouse might not know that they're in the groups, so it's a lot of things. But, we try to do a lot of vetting, and we try to make sure that the people that we date are aware. So to answer your question, yes, I always let them know I'm very much poly. For one, I live out loud, like I blast my wife, my family, as well as polyamory. The only thing that I don't really put out there is multiple partners, because other partners that I've had in the past weren't open as I was.
Right.
So I'm posting a lot of them, and I try to respect everyone's privacy, because a lot of us are, we're in careers that it may be frowned upon,
Right.
But at the end of the day, but it was a saying, what's understood doesn't need explanation. So I don't really necessarily have to blast that, because what our situation is. Or if we were in a poly community setting, or event, then they know who, we are together. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, if I'm approaching someone, I let them know, listen, I'm married, I'm polyamorous, but I'm interested in getting to know you. If you're open to that, then we'll see where things go.
Okay.
So if I were interested in that lifestyle and I wanted to join one of those groups, right? Is it okay for somebody like me who's probably interested in pursuing that to be a part of that, just to kind of see how it works?
Yeah, we have. I'm sorry.
Not really fully sure of what I'm doing or whatever, but I'm curious about it.
Yeah, we welcome anyone that wants to know more about polyamory, that wants to practice, and just to see how everything, operates. Because I tell people all the time, you really won't know until you are engaging in it, in a sense. I'm not necessarily saying you have to go and date, but just surrounding yourself around people who live and love this way, because then you're like, well, damn, there's people that look like me, that's loving in this way. So, we welcome people to come in, join the groups. I know our group specifically is a dating group. So typically if you're in our group, it's expected of you to be on a search for someone to date, but there's so many different groups that educate on polyamory. But our specific group is where you would come to, to find your lover, your partner, and have a good time. We host events here in Atlanta all the time. Before COVID, we would host a meet and greet every Thursday. We host a huge event for Halloween called Polyween, which is an amazing 4-day event Starts on Thursday, ends on Sunday. It's really amazing. You know, costume parties. You know, so if you ever see my wife and I dressed up on, you know, social media, you know, doing Halloween, that's where we're going to Polyween. You know, and we couldn't have it this year, so I'm hurt.
Yeah.
But if anyone is interested in it, you know, we tell you, reach out, you know, to someone that you know is polyamorous, ask them about the different groups. You know, we accept people into our group. It's easily found on Facebook under Poly Black and Dating. We're also on Instagram. It's Poly Black and Dating.
Yeah.
So, you know, yeah, and we welcome people to learn more about it. You know, because if it's not something for you, at least you have a better understanding of it, and you won't be looking at people crazy and, you know,
judging,
condemning folks, you know, for their love style. You know, you're allowing people to be who they are. So
with you saying that, right, why do you think a lot of people, they force monogamy on a person, right? But they're against living the poly lifestyle? Have you been around a lot of people who? Yeah,
I do. I get it all the time. I'm always hit with, you know, Coogee, you're not living right. And mind you, I'm not a religious person, you know, so I get a lot of my Christian friends that are like, Coogee, you know, that's not in the Bible. And I'm like, well, polygamy is, you know, or they're like, you know, that's against God's word. And I'm like, well, I'm not a Christian, so, you know, I really wouldn't adhere to that. However, I do what's best for me. This is my life, you know. But I do get a lot of people telling me, like, man, you shouldn't be doing this. But then I see them cheating on their husbands.
Right, exactly.
Or I'll tell you, it's really interesting that I get a lot of women that will try and talk to me and reach out to me that are married. When I tell them that my wife knows, they have a problem. But before that, they're like, oh, yeah, let's get together. Let's do this. And I'm like, okay, well, you can be my wife.
That's
you know,
interesting.
Your wife. Like, why would I do that? I'm like, because we're open. We're polyamorous. Like, you know, we won't have to hide.
So they want to sneak.
But I get it all the time where people are, you know, they shun and speak bad about polyamory, but they do other things like cheating. You know, it's crazy to me. I never understood, and I think I never will.
Right.
So I'm curious about your family, Coogee. Like, how did they react to all of this?
So, before I said that, I want to say this last thing about the whole cheating thing. There are people in the polyamorous community too that practice polyamory that still cheat as well. You know, which is crazy.
Why?
How?
Why?
It's interesting. It's interesting, but that goes more so to a person's personality and characteristics than the community and the love style. But to answer your question,
let's go back. Go back to that. Go back to that.
Yeah.
I want to, explain that more. Why would somebody want to cheat if you're?
I honestly can't explain their behaviors and why because it's not something that I do, but it's things that I see. And being an admin in the community, in a poly group, and we always refer to it as a community, by the way, opposed to just in a group, because it really is a community for us. But being an admin in the community, we see it all the time, and I can't really explain why they do it. You know, it's just, like I said, it's based on that person's personality and characteristics. You know, like I say all the time, and I'm just gonna be frank. Fuckboy gonna be a fuckboy, whether they're polyamorous and a same as a fuck girl. You know, they're gonna be that. And forgive my language. You know, if you guys have younger audiences, but it's the truth. You know, you're gonna be who you are wherever you are. You know, it's gonna show its ugly face. You know, if that's who you are, then it's gonna show up. You know.
So is it cheating? Is it cheating because you are not open and your other partners don't know about the relationship? aware of
So
it.
from what we've seen, it's cheating because you're with someone who your partner does not know about.
Okay.
Or to give you a better example, a lot of times in polyamory couples set boundaries, right? Some people call them rules, some people call them agreements. My wife and I, we like the term agreements, opposed to like rules. And
Rules.
that's a
Yeah.
whole nother story of we had so many rules when we first started, but we only have a couple of agreements now. But going outside of those boundaries and those agreements that are set between you and your partner, and this is cheating. Like if your
Yes.
partner say, I'm
I
not
agree.
comfortable with you going, and doing this without me knowing, and you go and do that without their partner knowing, it's cheating. And that happens a lot. And the reason why I say it happens a lot, because it gets blasted on the timelines in the community. You be like, whoa, okay,
Oh.
well, that went left. So we see it all the time.
Wow.
But
Okay.
yeah.
So let's get back to your family. Like,
Family.
so you grew up pretty much in a, would you say, Christian household?
Mm-mm.
No?
Ew. Very
Okay.
spiritual, African-centered household.
African-centered.
Non-traditional, very non-religious household.
Okay.
Especially a household where sex wasn't a taboo, or being
nice.
promiscuous was a issue. Like, I grew up in a house where my mother and my father were very free spirits. They were very educated.
Okay.
Streetwise, as well as college educated as well. But they were so much of a free spirit and loving people that they didn't conform to societal norms and rules. Actually, I found out years after my wife and I had been practicing polyamory that my parents actually practiced polyamory at one point too, which blew my mind, because I'm like, wait a minute. It's in my blood. It's in my DNA, But it was interesting when my family, they always knew that I would be a little different as it relates to my love style, because I was a guy, who always had a lot of women, friends, a lot of women. I mean, for one, I'm a twin. I have a twin sister, so I've always had women around, and I enjoyed that growing up. And I think that's probably what kind of played a part of my, being polyamorous, because it was always my twin sister. And it was 12 of us, but still, we just grew up together. So I've always had like my sister's friends around, and they were beautiful. It was like, man, I want her, and I want her too. So my family always knew that I would be a little different. They probably thought I would probably be polygamous. But when I finally told them and came out and told them about polyamory, they were like, oh, yeah, we support it. We knew that you were going to be this or something, to the extent. But I'll never forget, actually, the time that I actually came out to my family about polyamory was when I found out that my parents had polyamorous connection or relationships, in the past, because I was sitting drinking with my mother, her sisters, and a couple of my cousins. And I'm an avid reader, so I'm always reading something. And I had my backpack with me, and we were drinking a lot, and I kicked over my bag, and all my books fell out. I had a book at the time I was opening up a book called She Comes First, another book called Polyamory in the 21st Century, and they all fell out the bag. Oh, I'm sorry, it was The Heart of Tantra Sex was the other book that fell out. And so my cousin was like, what is all this? What are these books, And so I was explaining to them, about polyamory. And this was the first time that I had really verbally communicated, what my wife and I practiced. Because they all kind of had speculation. They always kind of sharing it with the family, that, hey, could you be, flirting a lot on Facebook, he be out, with this particular woman. So it was always kind of exposure to what we did. But it was the first time that I actually verbally communicated that with them. And my mother was like, yeah, you sound just like your dad. You know, like I remember we had a, you know, a polyamorous, connection. We're all drinking, so I'm like, yeah, whatever, mom. You know. Until the next day, you know, my father and I were out, and he was like, yeah, your mother was, we did. So if they really accepted us, you know, in our love style, and they accepted our partner, like when we host a lot of house gatherings here, we call them game nights. You know, nothing sexual at all. It's just like we just all get together, play drunk Uno, Ring of Fire, stuff like that. And it's always a lot of our, you know, the poly community as well as our vanilla friends who, you know, is what we call them. You know, people who don't practice polyamory. So they all, you know, would come in and be hanging out. But my family came down and they would meet different partners of ours, and they would embrace them as if that was just like my girlfriend without me being married, or Whitney's partner, you know, boyfriend without her being married to me. Like they would just accept it, you know, and it was like it was a family, because that's just my family. Like they're a very loving family, very accepting, you know, and we like, hey, what you want to do is what you do. You know, we support it, we love you because you're my family member.
Right.
So they're very
So talk about DNA. Is your twin in polyamory as well?
She's not. She's not.
Okay. Any of your siblings are?
I do have another sister who's a part of the community as well.
Okay.
It's funny because, and they joke with me a lot because a lot of my family members over the years have joined the poly community, and because they're like, man, this is like, cuz this is what I've been, you know, feeling all my life, and you know, I'm glad that you were bold enough to do it, because now I feel confident enough to do it. And so I do have a lot of family members in the poly community. I'll tell you,
oh, wow.
One of the very first groups that I joined, it was a huge group. I think they had like 30,000 members, and it was a predominantly white group. And I'll never forget, I joined in, I made my introduction, and like I scrolled down and I saw one of my uncles. It was crazy. I was like, wait a minute, what are you doing? He was like, what are you doing here? Because not many in my family are Greek, and this particular uncle of mine is an Omega as well. So he was like, I guess it's in our family, you know. So it was really interesting, but yeah. So my family is very much open, you know. Again, like I said, we grew up in a household that wasn't, you know, very non-traditional. In fact, I remember growing up in high school when other guys were looking at women that were promiscuous as being, you know, hoes and, you know, all that. And I was just like, man, I don't see what's wrong with it. Like, that's normal to me, because in my household, you know, sex was a good thing. You know, you just, you know, you wanted someone to be intimate with and share sexual experience with. Didn't do it as long as you're protecting yourself, and, you know, and it's done right with consent. Mm-hmm. By all means. So it was crazy to me when I started realizing how bad, you know, promiscuity was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my family is very much, and I love them. I'm grateful that they are the supportive family, you know, that they are.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
All right. So, okay. So is it truly possible to love all your partners the same?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, it is.
It is?
Really?
Yes. Wow. Like, I'll tell you, again, this is speaking from someone who absolutely loves love. For me, when and this is how it works for me. You know, I can't speak for anyone else. I'll share how it works for me. When I'm loving someone outside of my wife, it makes me love my wife that much more. You know, if I'm sharing intimacy and, you know, sexual experiences with another woman, it makes me desire my wife sexually that much more. Because I mean, love is energy and it never dies. You know, so it's just transforming, or not necessarily transforming. It's just traveling from one. It's flowing. It's flowing. And so for me, when I'm in love, I'm in love. You know, and I'm a firm believer in rising in love opposed to falling in love. So you hear me say rise in love a lot, because falling hurts. But but it does. But it
For
does,
real.
But I absolutely love the connections that I have made, over the years. And like I said, when I'm in love, I'm in love. And as you can see, my whole tone just dropped because I'm like,
Right.
Yeah.
it's a beautiful feeling to be able to love friends. And it's like this. You have 3 children, right? You didn't stop loving your next child after you had your first child after you had your second. And you didn't love
Right.
your first 2 no differently than you loved the third one when it came in. You love them all equally, but in different ways. And I
Ways.
explain to people all the time that, different energy or different people brings out and provokes different energies within you. So you have a
Yeah.
different loving connection, with them. So just like with my 4 daughters, even with my brand new daughter, like I have a great deal of love for her. And I just met her, 2 weeks ago, and so but I don't love my 17-year-old no different. Like, that's been my heart, 17 years,
Yeah.
and my 2 in the middle, my 11 and my 8-year-old, like I love them just, it's, what I mean? So it's impossible for me to say, I can't love this person and love that person. Because I love my wife with everything in me, but there has been times where I'm in love with another woman outside of my wife, and we don't show any variation between that love. It's like, yeah, I love you and I still love you, and I can show that to you both simultaneously, but it's ways to learn how to do that, though, to navigate that love, because sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm so in love with this person, or maybe caught in what we call NRE, new relationship energy, where you forget and neglect that particular person. And that's where those feelings of jealousy comes in, because of neglect, but when you learn how to manage that, you say, okay, this is what I love about you, and this is what we share, but I also want to make sure that I'm open with you too. And what I've learned to do with my wife, and with partners, is I do it's almost like clockwork, quarterly, do check-ins, like, hey, how can I be a better lover? How can I be a better husband? How can I be a better friend? Is there anything that you're lacking from me that I
Yeah.
need to show up for? With my wife, and I share this with my partners as well. Just to kind of make sure I'm navigating that love, in a healthy manner, for
Yeah.
and communicating and making sure that I'm not leaving her behind. So, and, as well as with my partner.
That's how I connect to that, the whole loving different people, because I can imagine that everybody brings out a different feeling in you, or
Yeah.
not that you love somebody differently, but everybody contributes to a different feeling within you. And that's how I understand, that's why I understand why people are attracted to that type of relationship, because
Exactly.
everybody, I was like, we put so much pressure on ourselves to be this one person in a relationship, one relationship, and we put ourselves under so much pressure. But if I can see that you can get what you need, or get your needs met from different types of relationships.
Yeah, and it's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
Because everyone provokes a different type of energy.
Yes.
Like I'm very, like, give you an example, my wife and I, we're very opposite. I'm an extreme extrovert. Let me not say, we've balanced each other out over the years. I used to be an extreme extrovert. She used to be an extreme introvert, and a lot of things that I like to do and enjoy doing, she was like, no, I'm a homebody. I ain't trying to do all that. And I would refrain from doing it because I wouldn't want to go by myself. I'm like, I want to go with my lover. I want to go with my partner. But polyamory allowed me to have a partner to say, you love doing this too? Let's go. We go do it. And it's perfectly okay, because my wife is like, yeah, I wasn't doing that anyway. So and vice versa. She has people that she can, do all the things that she likes that I won't. But I will say that I'm a little more open to exploring the things that she may want to do, but I'm a little different than most people, period. And I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but I really am. Like, for those that know me, know I'm I'm just cut from a different cloth.
Yeah.
And not trying to belittle anyone. I understand that I'm an alien. So,
I say the same.
but it allows for you to connect with people who share those same interests, and still have a connection with someone who doesn't have that interest but have a distinct interest.
Exactly.
And it's a beautiful thing, because it teaches you so much about yourself as well, and you start to grow a little bit more because you're now, especially if you're open-minded, you become more exposed to things that you may not have done, or people that you may not have been associated with, and it adds on to who you are as a person, and it's a beautiful thing.
So do you
Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead, Keith.
Go ahead, Renee.
do you think that the practice of polyamory has kind of transcended into how you relate to your kids and love your kids in any way?
Honestly, I don't think that polyamory had anything to do with that, only because my parents, hands down, the best parents in the world. They weren't married but for 10 years of my life, but they both were very dynamic, very active, very loving, very supportive. And the type of love, like I tell you all the time, the love that I give people is the love that my mother gives everyone. And I don't know, Heather, if you saw my post and saw some of the things that people were commenting, or especially on Facebook, like people showed up and showed out when she transitioned. But my parents were so loving, like I know I couldn't have gotten that love anywhere else. And because that love was poured into me, that's exactly how I love my children.
Gotcha.
But I will say this though, to your question, polyamory showed me how to differentiate that love between them because they were so different, and how to say, okay, my 17-year-old, this is who you are, and I respect who you are as an individual, and I can, facilitate this connection, father and daughter connection between us based off of who you are, as I would like with a relationship, and so forth with the rest of my daughters. So it did help me with that, and I'm grateful for that. But polyamory taught me so many other things too. But just as far as it relates to my family, like you would have to know, like I was a 7-year-old boy running around. People ask me what I want to do or want to be, and I'm saying I want to be a father. I want to, so it was always there because I had such a great father figure. I'm sorry, a father, who was just there, and who's still there. He loves the whole concept of polyamory and me being polyamorous. Like he absolutely loves it. But yeah. So
one final question from me. Have you ever gotten just tired? Like, because keeping up with all these relationships, and you want to be the best partner you can be, but doesn't it get a little draining sometimes?
I wouldn't say it gets draining, but I'm very selective on who I share my energy with. Excuse me. I'm very selective on who I exchange energy with. So people that the people that I connect with, they're not going to be draining. They're going to be people that have a fair exchange. And engaging is a healthy exchange of energy. So we're pouring into each other. I'm real big on if the vibration. I'm an energy and vibrations person. So if it's low vibration, then I'm like, nah, I'll pass. But if it's high vibrating, I'm always feeling energized when I'm speaking with you. Just like I'm speaking about poly now, it gives me, and I love it. So those are the type of people that I look to connect with, that are just beautiful spirits, and typically those are the women that I'll date. So it doesn't get draining for me. Like, and I absolutely, that's like asking me, do you get tired of loving your wife? With her for so long? Like, no. Like I love being with her and we have a really kid-like relationship. So we joke, we laugh, and those are some of the qualities that I look for in my partners. So if I can be myself, because I'm very silly. Like right now I'm being, serious for, for the show, but I'm really a big kid, and so we have a good time, and so for me to think that a partner could drain me, then they shouldn't be my partner.
Okay.
So
That's cool.
But it's just like when I don't know how old you ladies are, but when
26.
in your life, I'm sorry, 20,
26.
26.
I heard that.
26.
But I was gonna
Keep
say,
being a little younger.
when you were a lot younger, maybe in your teens, you met this guy or met this woman, and they just filled you. You was excited about being around. Like you never felt dull until you started meeting those combative areas, and you like, damn, this ain't the person I thought it was. And see, and I say that to say that I do try to take my time to get to know people. Like I tell people when I meet you, like just say if I'm, met you out and I wanted to get to know you, I would tell you, but listen, I'm interested in getting to know you. I don't have any expectations of this being one thing or another, but I'm open to our connection being very platonic and growing and blossoming into whatever our energies collectively put into it. Because it could, and I also say this, it could be something strictly platonic, or it could be something romantic. It could be something strictly sexual. I'm open to those things, or it could be something that encompasses it all. But I don't want to put an expectation on it needing to be that.
Right.
So whatever we grow into, let's do that. And usually you kind of feel out and see, well, for me, I'll kind of feel out and see what that connection is, because if it doesn't give me that high energy, that like that, man, I really enjoy I really enjoy conversing with this person on a regular basis, I know it's not a person that I can really, solidify a relationship with.
Okay.
So
what would you tell a person that is curious to get into that lifestyle, who's never been around that? How would you talk them into it, or what advice would you give them?
Talk them into it.
Or not talk them into it.
I was gonna say, I try to tell people, like, if you're not really sure about polyamory, I say don't do it. But if you think it's something that you're really interested in and that you feel like it really aligns with, your spirit and your personality and your heart, and because a lot of times our mindset is really not where our heart and spirit is at times, but I say be open-minded. Don't go in it with one perception of what it's supposed to be for you. To also learn as much as you possibly can, about who you are first. Be again, and I say this to any newcomer in our community that asks me my advice. Take the approach my wife and I did. Be brutally honest with yourself about who you are, what you want, what you need, and what you desire. Accept that within yourself, because that way now you can navigate. It's like if you don't know who you are, because most people don't know who they are,
Right.
however old they may be, or however young they may be, but learn who you are, so now you can successfully navigate to those things, in this love style that you may want, because you never know what your future may bring for you, because you never know what you want until you expose yourself to something different. Because you very well may expose yourself to polyamory and be like, nah, this isn't for me. Maybe I might just be open. And there's so many different dynamics. You may not be polyamorous. You may be polyandrous. You may be a swinger. You may just be open. It's so many different things there. So learning who you are, will really help you navigate, what your direction is. But once you decide that polyamory is for you, be open to love, have fun, loving, don't be too hard on yourself if you're not, I guess, quote unquote, polying the way people expect you to. And I always tell people this too, like, if you're a couple coming into polyamory, poly in a way that's best for you and your partner, because you try to do what everyone else is doing and you overstep some boundaries, agreements, or anything like that, you can create a whole lot more insecurities, hurt, and pain that will devastate your relationship. So really just be open-minded and learn as much as you can. and like I said, have fun with it. You know, and read as much as you can about it. You know, and join some communities. You know, like yeah.
Well, thank you. So I'm with that shirt. I keep staring at it. Right, it says, "Damn, where, and how we make polyamory
look
look
good."
good." I love it. And
So,
where did you get that? Where do you get
so
that?
this shirt is actually made by my wife's boyfriend. He has paraphernalia. Well, not paraphernalia. He has a T-shirt shop where he makes polyamorous paraphernalia. And I had him design this. Now this shows a little arrogant because it say, "Damn, we make polyamory look good." That's because I favor how my wife and I practice polyamory. You know, that's not to say that anyone else is not really doing it well. I just love how we engage in polyamory with each other as well as with our partners. But he made this shirt specifically for me. But he does have a host of different designs for polyamory.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I try to support them too. So,
I love it.
I try to. I do because I have several of the shirts.
I love it.
I like it.
All right. Any more questions, lady?
Love it.
Any more questions?
Oh, I'm good. What is your where people can get that? The shirt.
Oh, so the shirt he's on Instagram at Black Poly Tees.
Okay.
Yeah, on Instagram.
Okay.
And while you're at it on Instagram, if people are interested in learning more about polyamory, we're on Instagram and Facebook as Poly Black and Dating. The group, like I said, is a dating group. So if you're interested in trying to find someone, to connect with, come join a group. We're like the club, so you come in and have a good time. You might step on somebody's shoes, and they might look at you crazy sometimes, but it's still all love. But we're on, and I'm personally on Instagram as Kikuji Chagalia the Lover. If anyone is interested in following, because I do post a lot about polyamory and I speak about it, but I speak a lot from a different perspective. A lot of people speak more to the triad perspective and their wife and them adding another woman into their connection, which is not a issue. It's not a wrong thing to do. Excuse me. It's just not what I practice. We practice, dating openly. Excuse me. I can't speak.
Okay.
But we practice dating openly. So, we give a perspective of it's okay for my wife not to be, to be with other men, if she, chooses to be. So we call it OPP in the poly community, one penis policy. So we're against OPP.
OPP.
But yeah, so we can be found there.
Okay, so what about your singing and your music?
Yeah. So music, like I said earlier, I'm currently working on a project now just to kind of give more light and just more exposure to, alternative love styles of polyamory and, tantric relating and tantric sex. So that project should be finished, I'm hoping, within the next few months. COVID kind of put a real, stop to a lot of it. So and it actually I'm kind of glad it did because I started writing different songs during this time frame. I'm really excited about it. Like I said, but this next song will be recorded either this evening or tomorrow. Tantric sensual energy exchange. So tantric sex. So that should be out here pretty soon.
Okay.
But also that's on my page. Anything music related will be on my page as well. Like I don't have a specific page for music other than Facebook. I do have a Kuji Wright page on Facebook that people can follow that has music. It actually has my music video for Twin Flames on there as well. So, yeah.
So Kuji, so in our closing, right, one thing we always ask our guests, what are you grateful for? Give me one thing you're grateful for.
Now we just went this whole show about me being polyamorous. I can't just pick one thing.
Okay, pick a couple things. This is Polly. Go ahead.
Right. So I'm really just grateful for life and truly living life, you know,
Yeah.
and it's the experience of love. You
Mhm.
know, like again, like I mentioned, I'm a lover, you know, and I think if I couldn't love, I couldn't live,
Ooh,
you know. So
love it.
yeah.
I love it.
I love it, love it. Honest, thank you so much for coming on, Kuji. We understand a lot more now about the lifestyle because I thought polygamy and polyamory were the same exact thing. So we appreciate you being on and enlightening us on this subject. So
I'm glad I could. I enjoy speaking. I'm glad I got a chance to meet you ladies as well. So, because I was like, man, I when you hit me up, I was like, man, did I say something someplace? Because I comment all the time, something everywhere.
and that's what it is. I saw you on someone else's page just commenting about something. So I'm like, perfect.
I appreciate it. I
But we
really
appreciate you being on, though. So again,
Thank
follow
Really
us
do.
at I Got You Podcast. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. I Got You
Okay.
Podcast.
And I make sure